Hi students, today's lesson is on externalities or market failures. And I really think this is an important topic for us to consider, especially given kind of the state that we're in right now and the situation in our world. So we want to make sure and understand what externalities are and kind of how they work. All right, so first let's just talk about what an externality is. An externality is a side effect. It's an outcome of an action that's not included in the market price. So for instance, the picture on the screen here of smoking. So someone pays when you smoke a cigarette, when you are a smoker, you pay for the cigarettes. You pay for the lighters. You pay a higher cost for health insurance. There are lots of different things that you pay for, but you do not pay for the side effects of your actions. You don't pay for the smoke that other people inhale when you smoke near them. So the smoke is the side effect that's not included in the market price of cigarettes. Now, this is a real problem. Externalities are a real problem, and politicians and different groups of people have different opinions on how to solve the externality problem. Here's just a really classic example. When you go to the store and you buy a case of water bottles, you pay for your water bottles. You pay, I think I paid for a 12 pack like $2.50 or something the other day. So I paid for my water bottles, but I didn't pay for the cleanup of the ocean. I didn't pay. We all know, and we've heard in our science classes of like the incredible problems we have with the overuse of plastic. So think about every time you go to the store and you buy something that's in plastic. You buy a milk bottle or a milk jug, an orange juice jug, and it's in a plastic bottle. You're paying for the orange juice. You're paying for that product, but you're not paying for the side effect of using that plastic. So what do we do? And of course, this is why there are some environmentalists who hate capitalism and who hate the market economy. They say the market economy is terrible. Why? Because all of these negative side effects of our actions. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So first thing with side effects to understand is that they can happen on the production side or on the consumption side. So for instance, an externality can be, a company that pollutes the air when they produce something, but it can also be me as a consumer over consuming something. Like for instance, we've seen lately this crazy run on toilet paper that's been going on. It's just like insane, right? Well, what's going on there? There's a side effect. That person is going in and buying 20 packs of toilet paper. They're paying for their items. They're paying the market price for the toilet paper that they purchase. But they're not paying for the side effect of their action, which is that they're causing a shortage. They're causing the store to not be able to put enough on the shelf for everyone else. So the externality can be, we can look at the producer and say, oh my gosh, there's this negative side effect of production, but it can also be a consumer who has a negative side effect of their action. Another thing to remember is that externalities lie outside the market transaction. Okay, so here's an example. If I get into an accident and I hit somebody with my car, well, what happens? I have to pay for their damage. Now, in our world, I have insurance, so I have car insurance. So I don't actually fork out money myself. My insurance pays for their damage. And I am legally required to have insurance so that if I hit somebody, their damage is covered. So is that an externality? Is me hitting somebody a side effect of driving? No, it's not. Why? Because that's actually covered in the market transaction. That's not a side effect that's not covered. I pay for that accident. Now, the pollution that comes from my car, that's an example of an externality because I don't pay for pollution. Okay? Externalities are an example of a market failure. It's a market failure because we've talked about supply and demand, and we've said how a supply and demand graph can express the perfect price for an item, right? The equilibrium price. Well, that perfect equilibrium price may not take into account the social cost, the cost to society, like for instance, the plastic trash in the ocean. And please remember that externalities can be a positive thing or it can be a negative thing. You can do something good that has a positive side effect that you don't get paid for. You can also do something negative that has a negative side effect and you don't pay for it. Okay, so they can be positive or negative. All right, so what should we do about it? And I think it's important to look at the extremes because I think the extremes help us to see the middle. All right, so the first extreme is stop. Stop any action that has a negative side effect. Just stop doing it. Now, most of the time you see this, especially when it comes to environmental things. So, like the arguments of we should completely stop using fossil fuels, just like stop, no more. Wow. Okay. So that is a really extreme view to just cut off the entire fossil fuel industry. What's the problem with that kind of extreme view? The problem is that if you completely stop production, that also has negative side effects. So when you go and try to solve the externality, you cause another externality. Like for instance, if we were to stop, like let's say we're just not going to use fossil fuels, we're not going to use gasoline anymore. Okay, so you would have a major negative side effect of all of our entire society that essentially runs on gasoline, you know, communication, transportation, getting the ambulances to and from the hospitals. Like, I mean, you can just imagine the cultural upheaval that would happen if we weren't using fossil fuels. So you can't, so stopping completely is extreme. However, on the other side, there is a lot of people who say, hey, we're the largest economy in the world. The market system, capitalism made us great. We should just keep doing what we're doing. Who cares if there's a few annoying side effects? Who cares if there's some plastic in the ocean? Well, that's not a good system either. Why? Because these side effects, if we let them build up, they won't think about future generations. Okay, so I'm sorry that the camera's covering it, but does not take into account the future. Perhaps we can live with the side effects now, but what about future generations? So these two extreme views, do everything and then do nothing, neither one of them are really a solution, right? Well, I mean, there are people who have the opinion that they're solutions. I shouldn't say they're not solutions. They exist as solutions. Okay, what's an economic way? Well, the economic way says, listen, let's go back to marginal cost to marginal benefit. What we need to do is we still need to find equilibrium price, but we need to make sure that equilibrium price adds in the cost of dealing with the side effect. We need to add that cost in. So for instance, here we have a regular supply and demand graph. Well, supply can also be looked at as a marginal private cost, okay? What do? We can add, we say, look, let's say this is the equilibrium for water bottles. This is how much quantity I'm having, right? This is my quantity. Here's my price. But what if the cost to society is actually greater? What if the marginal social cost is actually greater? What would the equilibrium price be then? It would be a lower quantity and a higher price, right? Because that's where the demand meets the marginal social cost. We've got to add that social cost in to the supply. So what does this graph tell us as we look at that graph with the extra line on it, the marginal social cost? The graph tells us that the cost to society is higher than the cost to the individual, and the actual equilibrium is a higher price and lower quantity of the item because of that negative side effect. So we add in the cost of cleaning up the side effects, right? So I pay for my water bottle, and then I pay a fee or an extra tax to clean up the ocean, right? That would be the idea of solving the externality. A positive externality is when there's a positive side effect of your action. So, for instance, this woman is riding her bike to work. She has a positive side effect of her action, but she's not being rewarded for that. So, what can the government do there? How can we graph that? Well, here we have a same supply and demand line. Okay, maybe this is the cost. This is the price of riding her bike. This is the quantity of bike riding that woman's doing. Well, guess what? The actual benefit to society is way more. The demand is it's actually more the benefit to society. And I wish I could move this. Oh, I can. Look at that. See, the demand, there it goes. This is the marginal social benefit. Okay, so this is the marginal social benefit And this is the private benefit. How can the government respond? Well, there are lots of opinions. Obviously, lots of opinions on this, and you can read multiple articles about what they should do to solve pollution and other kind of environmental issues. But for now, let's just look at this. There are some basic things they can do, like regulations and fees, which we do in America. Companies pay fines for pollution. We could ban certain activities, like just say plastic water bottles are illegal. Okay, well, we'll see, right? That could work. Try to change the mind of demanders. This is really interesting. For instance, when they wanted to get rid of smoking, they had this public campaign to try to make smoking look really bad. And so try to keep people from smoking and lower the quantity of smoking that occurred. And then, of course, you could also reward and encourage innovation. So like if somebody came up with a cool new water bottle that is completely biodegradable, well, you could encourage that innovation. You could give them some sort of government subsidy because they came up with something to solve the problem. So another question that we have to talk about when we talk about externalities are certain industries. Should some things, because of the complicated externalities surrounding them, should they be completely controlled by the government? Should electricity or fossil fuels be totally controlled by the government? And of course, that's a debatable opinion. Some people say yes, and some, of course, say no way, because that would limit choice and raise prices. So what do we do? Well, what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at your textbook. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your textbook, pages 56 to 61. Okay, so you're going to get your textbook out and you're going to define the following terms. So look at these terms in your book, and then I want you to explain some of the things that a government could do to solve an externality problem. Okay? All right. Thank you for your hard work today. When you're done with that, I have a short wrap up for this lesson, but we'll have more on this lesson tomorrow as well. Your test has been pushed back. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.